Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bedtime Comics. This is the follow up to Werewolf by Night first appearance video. This is be Marvel Spotlight number 3. So it opens up with Jack Russell as the werewolf, and he is still at the beach house trying to collect his thoughts best he can over what's going on with his stepdaddy and his mama, and he ends up catching a whiff and hearing commotion down the further down the road of a group of bikers had managed to get away from the law. And when they got away from them, they ended up seeing Jack Russell's sister go down the road, and of course, it's just part of the stereotype of bikers. They they go after the sister for reasons I'm not going to get into, but you can figure it out. So they follow her all the way to the beach house, and they end up crashing through the front door. And as they approach the sister, he shows up in his werewolf form and fights them all off just as the police come up. And as the police get there, the bikers split, the werewolf goes to leave, and oddly enough, who didn't see it coming, he ends up getting shot again. So he scampers off to the woods, and he watches from the bushes, and he sees the detective over there with another guy, and he notices that the other guy indeed sees him in the bushes but doesn't say anything. So that will come back around to him, and as the night goes on, the police end up leaving, and I want to get you a little action scene here of where the bikers come crashing through the front door, and you got the little scuffle here with the werewolf by night and the bikers. So as you can see here, the guy there is well aware he's in the bushes, but says nothing. So as the night goes on, the police wrap up whatever investigation they can do, and they're going about their way. Well, morning comes, and Jack Russell, human form, comes out again. And he's way out in the middle of nowhere, trying to hitchhike to get a ride. And lo and behold, here comes the guy that's seen him in the bushes as a werewolf, is picking him up for a ride. And he even knows the guy by name, his name Jack and all this. And the guy, I'm terrible with names, pronouncing names and stuff. So, but if I'm reading it right, his name is Nathan Timely, something like that. And he tells him he's got to take him back to his place in Hollywood. So they drive back to his house, and he's introduced to the Timely's wife, who, oddly enough, at least to me, You can write in the comments if you agree or not, but looks an awful lot like the Bride of Frankenstein. Of course, it never says that's who she is, and of course, it's not who she is. But I just thought it was a neat little thing they threw in there with them dealing with, like a Universal Monsters Wolfman that they kind of throw in like a Bride of Frankenstein Easter egg. I mean, that was pretty neat. And then you bring into the fact that once he's in there, the wife of Timely is looking for a book, and she says that she knows he was told the location of the book from his mother in the hospital before his mother died. Now this is what I was going to speak on in the last video, but it plays more of a part in here because it is actually mentioned and talked about in issue 2, or technically issue 3 of Marvel Spotlight, where last video they just had the mother die after revealing the curse of the werewolf. She never got into books or nothing, so this is the first Jack is hearing about a book. Well, the wife doesn't believe that his mother didn't tell him about the location of the book that she calls the Darkhold. And any modern Marvel reader will instantly recognize the book. So, but it's supposed to be a book that his father wrote. So keep that in mind. This is probably, I don't know that it is, but I'm assuming this is probably the first mention of the Darkhold in the Marvel Universe. So anyway, getting back on track, she has him locked up in the basement until she's convinced that he'll remember the book. She thinks he's just playing hard to remember right now. So she chains him in the basement, and you got the Bride of Frankenstein reference. Well, here we go with yet another Easter egg with this guy here that works for him. And I'm terrible with names, but his name is somewhere around Craig or Crag or something. But he is basically Igor from the Frankenstein lore, or Hunchback, whatever you want to go with. But to me, it's more like the Igor to Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein. Well, he's been mistreated all his life, so he's kind of not all there in the head. So he's kind of to keep an eye on him. He's supposed to keep an eye on Jack. Well, that night, he goes into the Mr. Timley goes in the basement to check on Jack and finds him in there as the werewolf, which he kind of suspected anyway. And the werewolf attacks him and just about kills him. And that's when the Igor fella comes in and they have a little tussle and they get separated. So the wife calls Jack in there in the morning when he becomes human again, trying to push him. Hey, you need to let me know about this book now. Like, this has been going on long enough. Like, let's get to the meat and butter. What? All I want is the book. So she convinces. Once he tells her, no, I don't know nothing about it. He's like, all she told me at the hospital was about the curse. He's like, I haven't heard anything about a book. So she orders Igor to start torturing him, basically. And Mr. Timely jumps in because he's like, no, this ain't what I signed up for. He's like, maybe he doesn't really know where the book is. Well, Igor ends up killing Mr. Timely. And Jack Russell ends up getting away in the aftermath. He ends up getting out and, getting loose in the yard or whatever, gets the chains off of him, and as night sets in, he becomes the werewolf again. So the wife sends the Igor back out in the middle of the night, in the middle of a thunderstorm, to bring the werewolf back. So they have this big fight out in this storm, and I gotta hand it to them. Like, I was kind of hesitant with the Omni, as I was saying last video, because I didn't know how much fighting there was going to be and all this other stuff. But the fights aren't long and drawn out, but they are there enough that you feel satisfied with them. But they're out here fighting in the storm, and the werewolf is once again getting beaten back because this Igor dude is working for them because they promised him that they could replace his hand. And his hand, as you can see, is nothing but just a metal arm now. Well, that plays into the downfall because he had the upper hand on the werewolf. But right here, he gets struck by lightning in the metal arm and it kills him. So the werewolf takes the opportunity, because he's like any predator in the wild. Once the main threat's done, he's going to leave. So he leaves. And the wife that is left, she has been looking and looking and looking for this dark hole because she believes there's spells in there she can use to make her life better, basically. So she goes in there to try to use the spells without the book, and it ends up killing her because she didn't have the proper channel. She didn't go do it the right way. So it ended up costing her life. And the story ends with Jack Russell deciding it's time for him to go back to his father's place and look for the book. So I feel like it was a little more of an action-packed story than the first one was. The first one was a good read, and it did have its fair share of action once it got into the story. But this one had 2 or 3 different fights with Igor in it, or I call him Igor, but you know it's this Craig or whatever his name is. I mean, it started with the biker fight. I mean, you had about 3 different fights in the span of 22 pages. And they developed a lot of story in the downtime. So, that was a magnificent approach. It's kept me drawn in. I'm looking forward to the next issue, which probably won't get around to for a while because I have such a big backlog of stuff to read that instead of just burning through a whole Omni at one time and burning myself out on a character for reading 50 issues back to back of a character, I like to jump around. So my next couple of videos will probably be, I don't know, some Batmans or Spider-Mans or something. It probably won't be Werewolf by Night again until I get the cycle back around. I got a little cycle I work through. So it may be a week or so before I get around to another werewolf video. Uh, but I mean, if you've got any issues or stories you want me to go over, I mean, just leave comments in there. And, if I don't have them, I'll see about getting them. Uh, Once again, I highly recommend picking up Werewolf by Night, or however you can get it. The, honestly, the cheapest way, if you're not a physical person like I am, where I like to have the book, I like the smell of the books, then the Marvel digital app is probably the best way to go. It's like $10 a month, and it gives you access to literally tens of thousands of comics in the backlog of Marvel. So that would probably be the best way to read some of these, especially as out of print as all this has gotten, for Werewolf by Night anyway. But with that being said, I'm still into it. I'm looking forward to the next issue. Uh, and we haven't even hit the Werewolf by Night ongoing series yet. This is just his second appearance. So we'll see how it goes. And once again, keep reading, and I will see you all on the next video.